Thank you, and hello, and good evening, or whichever. The rock scene in this country often seems so outrageous that you would think it was impossible to satirize, for example. And how can you put on something that itself already seems like a put-on? Well, my guest tonight is a man who has made a very successful career by doing exactly that. He is Frank Zappa, who has made a name for himself, depending on the person you ask, either as a sincere weirdo, a musical genius, an insincere weirdo, a penetrating social commentator, and so on. And in the 60s and 70s, his group, the Mothers of Invention, was noted for albums with titles like Freak Out, We're Only in It for the Money, also for very bizarre onstage antics involving people making speeches, dolls on stage, large ones, stuffed animals, one of which did something unmentionable at or toward the audience. But even those who went away shocked or puzzled had to admit that there was a real professionalism and musical skill involved in all this, in these performances. And a recent Zappa song is called Jewish Princess, which, as usual, has given offense and amusement in about equal parts. And he also has a movie out called Baby Snakes, which he describes as being about people who do stuff that is not normal. But with Frank, I guess the question is, what is normal? Perhaps he can tell us. Will you welcome Frank Zappa? You're fastidious as ever, I see.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to assume that Baby Snakes is, what, a traditional love story, a brittle Noel Coward comedy, none of the above?
It's a none of the above.
Is it? Yeah. Is there anything you can tell us about it that isn't...
that you can use on television?
That you could use here, or that won't spoil it for the...
Yeah, I'll tell you about it. It has animation, it has live musical performance, it has people talking, it has a rubber girl.
I think that's an essential ingredient in today's films.
It's a statement.
Yeah, I walk out of anything that doesn't have a rubber
Me
girl.
too.
Should we get some things focused or whatever? Some people have called you simply the forerunner of punk. Do you want to disavow that?
Yeah.
Or them?
I mean, don't blame it on me.
Okay.
You know, I never asked anybody to put safety pins in their face.
Yeah, who did? Why did people do that?
The story of punk. A guy in England, and it always has to do with some guy in England. A guy in England who had a boutique was smart enough to know that no musical trend has ever survived unless you could dress up to it.
Dress up to it?
That's right. All the important musical trends were accompanied by clothing trends to go along with the music. So he was going to cut through right to the heart of the matter and forget about the music and start with the clothes. So he got some guys and stuck some safety pins in their face and put some funny clothes on them and say, here, take these instruments, you're now the Sex Pistols. Okay. And went out and made a bunch of big contracts for them, and yeah. That's what I know about it.
But to you, that's not worth bothering with, I would think.
Well, I didn't have anything to do with that, so when people talk about punk, I always say, you know, don't blame it on me.
Yeah.
New Wave is a different story, though, because there are bands who are doing things today that sound really interesting, you know, and it's not just because of the way they're dressed. Yeah. The punk was more like, you know, screaming and ranting, I don't need you, and I hate you, and everything sucks, and stuff like that, you know, but the lyrics to some of the New Wave songs are more intriguing.
Who would you recommend in that field?
Well, I just bought an album by a group called The Slits.
Yeah. And
I also like Lena Lovitch. You know that? Ever heard anything by her?
No.
She has a very good song called Lucky Number. And there's another group called Jerry and the Holograms, who is this 45-year-old guy and his wife from Manchester, England.
She's the holograms?
She plays a synthesizer, and I think he does all the voices. They have a single out. If you need any of this stuff, go to Bleecker Bob's. He's got it.
It's a little hard to get to if you're in Utah, but...
He takes mail orders.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything about disco at this point? I never hear of your being in a disco.
You just weren't listening. I go there all the time.
Do you really?
I've been in discos around the world. I've made a very thorough sociological study of discos. I know from disco, believe me. And they're very uniform, surprisingly.
A certain similarity.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Disco fulfills a social function that, some people are saying, well, disco's going to go out, But as long as people want to get laid, there will be something like a disco, because that's the main social function of a discotheque. It's a place where people go to pick each other up and do stuff, yeah. And it's a real good excuse. And the other important thing about disco, bearing out what I said before about no popular musical trend surviving without some sort of clothing trend to go along with it, the disco is a place where you dress a certain way, to be part of that lifestyle. So it all fits together. You can act disco, you can have a disco outlook, and then spend your time and your money tweezing around in those places.
Let's confront the Jewish princess problem.
Right ahead.
This is a record that, I think I have some of the lyrics. It was a little hard to find which ones to select. That won't get the whole problem started up again. But I think people might get the idea that from the first four lines are, I want a nasty little Jewish princess with long phony nails and a hair that rinses, a horny little Jewish princess with a garlic aroma that could level Tacoma. And then there's
the rest of it?
There's a great deal more here, but perhaps even holding it up will keep it moving.
Just wave it like that.
All right.
While the ADL incenses itself.
But the ADL, or Anti-Defamation League, came down on you, I believe.
I was their meat for one season. Yeah. Let me put it to you succinctly. I think that any ethnic group that maintains a public relations agency like the ADL, whose job it is to manufacture a uniform image of the whole ethnic group, I mean, that's crazy. You can't expect that people are going to buy that. You can't just swave over the image of the whole ethnic group.
So, it probably doesn't come as a surprise to you that some people were offended by that, because there are such organizations. Is that
well, I think that particular
taught to be offended by
that particular organization is probably one of the most vocal organizations of any ethnic PR group that's around. But I just thought that it was uncalled for in my case.
Yeah. Do you run into that thing where people say, I'm a Catholic, so I can tell a Catholic joke, and is Zappa Jewish? If he were, then it would be better.
Well, that's what I thought when they first started complaining about it. But then I heard from some people who had other experiences with the ADL that they don't care. Apparently, they pick on Jews, too.
How so?
I'd heard from a man who used to be the program director at KCET in Los Angeles, the educational station out there. And he had had many confrontations with the ADL. And he knew of some instances where plays and things that they had run on the air there that had some Jewish content that didn't meet with the approval of the ADL, that the lady who wrote the play was having a lot of trouble with the ADL. So that's what I mean about trying to homogenize the image of an entire ethnic group. I mean, they're all different kinds of Jews. Same as there is all different kinds of anything, and to just hold up this, it reminds me of is when a long time ago, you used to be able to go to the boardwalk, and they got these flat things with people painted on them, and you stick your head through.
You could throw baseballs at them or have your picture taken.
Yeah, you have your picture taken as somebody in an ideal bathing suit, or, the muscle man pose. I mean, that to me is what it seems like that they're trying to do.
Yeah, all organizations like that seem to have the assumption that they're reacting for everybody named in the title.
Yeah.
And if I were a member of that group, I would say, well, you didn't ask me. I may or may not be offended, but...
Well, I've had a lot of phone calls and letters and support from people who were, in fact, Jewish, who wrote me and said, hey, that was a really nice song, and I'm not offended at all. Lorraine Newman was one of them. She called me up and she said, I am a Jewish princess, and that song is true and it's funny, and I like it, you know. And then another guy sent me a letter saying, well, if you think you've got problems, he sent me a clipping from some publication that showed that some time ago, when they were republishing the Arabian Nights, the ADL tried to alter some part of the Arabian Nights, which is, I don't know, historical old-time books, been around for a long time. They wanted to change the part in there about a Jew, and they wanted the publisher to modify the publication to suit.
Well,
you know,
I think the storm will probably blow itself out.
It already has, because since it is a PR organization, I mean, this might kick it up a little bit if this goes on the air again, but since it is a PR organization, I was only good for copy for their organization for a certain period of time. I mean, after you hear about Jewish Princess and you get your ADL point of view in the newspapers and run that for a while, okay, then it blows over and they're not going to get any more column inch out of it. But the thing that irritated me most about them coming after me was the fact that some people who took it upon themselves to criticize me, and I don't know whether they're authorized representatives of the ADL or whatever they were, had the audacity to accuse me of being anti-Semitic, to accuse me as a person of being anti-Semitic, which I am not, you know. And this goes into print in various places, and I have no way to refute these people. You know, I'm not going to track down every article that was in every local paper and say, no, this is not true. I mean, I like them. I have many friends who are Jewish, you know. I mean, it doesn't play. It doesn't,
once it's out, people can say, I read somewhere where he said,
right, yeah. And there have been 2 business deals that I was involved in since the time that happened, where problems arose because people were afraid to do business with me because they felt that I was anti-Semitic. And so now it gets into a situation where I believe my rights have been violated to a certain degree by improper statements in the press by this PR firm. And if I had a lot of money and a lot of time, and if I was a vindictive person, I would go out there and sue their butts off.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm a nice guy, and I'm not going to do it. You know, you just have to realize that they have their job to do, and I have mine, and just let it slide.
Well, they do have their job to do, I guess. I mean, that's the.
Yeah, but they don't have to do it on me. They're picking on the wrong guy.
Yeah, but there probably are times when their reason for being is something that you would agree with.
Sure, but I mean, I have difficulty with the tactics sometimes, and I have difficulty with the idea of censorship. I just don't buy it.
Censorship.
Yeah.
Once it seems to be that, then it's another matter. Before I leave this out, years ago I heard that you had just had a child that you had named Moon Unit, and everyone broke up laughing and thought, what a wonderful idea. Can't be serious.
Yeah, that's her name. She's 12 years old now.
What do friends call her?
They call her Moon.
Moon. Yeah.
Or Mooney.
Can you explain the name?
Or Moodin.
Did it ever occur to you that perhaps a child named Moon Unit might have certain problems with the name and with people saying...
It had occurred to me
that
a person who has a name like Mary is going to have some problems too.
But not because of the name so much, you have to admit.
Sure.
I mean,
how do you tell yourself from the next one?
Oh, that.
Get the drift? So,
but you aren't going to have everybody saying, Mary, where'd you get a name like that?
I might.
Well, you might, yes. Who do you find weird, Frank?
Well, I wouldn't want to single out any individual and put a stigma on them. That's almost like describing them as being anti-Semitic. To have me go on television and say, this person is weird, that would be a stigma. So we better let that one alone.
Sticking the sort of label on someone that you don't want put on.
But I know some people who are weird, but I don't want to name them.
Can we wring some initials out of you? Well, let's get into that. Do people like the right kind of music, to your way of thinking? By that I mean the Presley craze, which obviously goes beyond music and has seemed to be even greater in death almost than in his lifetime, with those people still standing vigil at the tomb and the worshippers and all of that. Just speaking of him musically, is he overrated?
I was never an Elvis Presley fan. I got a Christmas card from him one time, which surprised me a lot, but, you know, he probably did a mailing of 100, 200,000 that year. But I didn't really care for Elvis Presley, for anything personal. It's just that I'm not a rockabilly fan.
Not a what?
A rockabilly fan.
Rockabilly fan.
Yeah. But my theory is that music is good. It's the only religion that delivers the goods. And anybody who wants to hear any kind of music is entitled to hear that music because it's good for you. It makes you feel good. If you like it, go for it. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's a matter of personal taste.
Many people probably still wonder how, I know I do, how serious a musician you are. I mean, I know you consider yourself a serious musician. You've been called a genius, but that's a word.
I've been called anti-Semitic, too.
Well, but genius is a word that gets so easily to us, and music is often, you know, applied to anybody who knows more than 4 chords on a guitar. Or
That's
something.
a problem, yeah.
Hendrix was a genius musician, we're told. I've heard musicians say Hendrix did things on guitar that no one else can or has. But when you're called that, do you take it seriously yourself? Do you feel in some way you may...
It depends on who's telling me. If I think that they know the difference between a genius and a loaf of bread, then I'll pay attention to them. But, you know, the average person who comes to me and says, "You're a genius," then, well, I'll just take it with a grain of salt, won't I?
I should think, or at least a half a cupful. If Leonard Bernstein said it, would that cut any ice?
It depends on when he would say it.
I think any time would do.
Well, not necessarily, because he's got a pretty good sense of humor, too.
Oh, he might have his tongue in one or the other cheek.
Yeah. He might stick it in. I had dinner with him one time. You probably wouldn't remember, because we were all sitting at this table at what's that place called Ratner's that used to be next to the Fillmore East, to a deli.
Ratner's, yeah.
Yeah, and I was sitting there with him and some of the guys from Chicago, and he gave a lecture on the origin of gefilte fish. And explained how it was, I mean, I never knew where it came from, you know.
You know what the word meant, though?
That means filled or
fish,
stuffed.
sure, yeah. I guess that...
But he was talking about how they do it and going into these raptures, and he starts conducting it. It was pretty good.
Gefilte fish symphony. I often wonder with some people what their day is like, and you're one of those people. I've met you once years ago. But
Do you want to tell them what happened?
I often, what did?
Let me tell you about the time that I met Dick Cavett. See, I had never seen your television show before. This is what, 1970. Yeah, I'm the only one who had never seen his show before. I didn't know what he looked like, and we were supposed to play on the show. Whenever you do live music on television, it's lots of luck, believe me, especially in New York. So we had done this sound check in the afternoon. All the instruments are set up. The drums are set up. The amps are set up, right? And the rest of the guys in the band had gone out to get something to eat. And Ainsley Dunbar was the drummer in the band at that time. And he was a very fussy person about having anybody touch his drums. And so I'm waiting around the studio, and I hear this banging on the drums, and excuse me. And I look over, and there's this guy. He had a little cap on and a muffler, and you're sitting at the drums, and you were playing Ainsley's drums. I say, "Hey, you better not do that. Ainsley's going to be mad."
I played with a guy's drums?
Yeah.
I thought I always knew better than that.
And he said, "Don't worry, it's my show."
That doesn't sound like me at all. Could that have been Ed Sullivan?
Well, it would have been a good story if it was Ed Sullivan. He'd been dead for years.
Even then. Can you talk about rock then and now? This sounds like the terrible title for a magazine article or something, but I know a friend of mine went to London some years back to cover music for a magazine, and when he got there, they said somebody who'd been writing that sort of thing said, "You got here too late. It's all over with rock. It's dead. It's gone."
I heard that in 1956 or 57 when the articles were coming out in the paper saying, "It's over, forget it, Calypso is the thing." And that lasted about 15 or 20 minutes, and then after that there was the rumor that Fats Domino was dying of cancer of the throat. You ever hear that one?
You hear that about so many people, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's the Paul is dead syndrome. Don't listen to what people tell you. If you like a certain kind of music, just go out and enjoy it. I mean, people who tell you that whole segments of the musical world are just going to wither away at a moment's notice don't usually know what they're talking about. It's the ones that tell you about the new thing that's coming in. Those are the ones that are really messed up, because nobody can predict that.
No one knows when they ask those questions about where it's going. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the difference between rock then and rock now is mainly in hardware. The hardware for doing
what's used to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there were things attached to rock that aren't anymore. It seemed to be all tied up with the youth movement, the war movement, and all those things. And now it just seems a form of popular music.
I think it always was merely a form of popular music, and the attachments to movements and things like that were devices of the media. It's very difficult for media to talk about music in the United States without attaching some extracurricular message to it, because since this is an industrial society, and that's really the bottom line here, unless something performs some function of an industrial nature, who needs it, so consequently you don't really care about whether there are any composers in America, or if there's any good music being played, or if there is any musical culture. It's all just remnant type stuff. And so in order to make rock and roll reportable to the rest of the country at large, intellectual type nerds in a city such as this would take a song which probably meant Let's Go Dance and attach some supersonic symbolism to it and start claiming poetry where there was none. I mean, you remember Lizard King poetry, don't you?
Lizard King?
Yeah.
No.
You don't? Well, see what happens.
Yeah. I don't at all.
That's what Jim Morrison wrote some poems, remember?
Oh, that's right.
He was the Lizard King, and then there was Lizard King poetry. Mm-hmm. And, publications raving for centuries about, the metaphysical content of horse latitudes and so forth. And, hey, come on, baby, light my fire. That's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Is there any particular song of yours now that expresses your philosophy these days, or can you point to anything in particular, or maybe even do some lyrics for us that would?
You mean you want me to recite?
Sure. It's so.
Let's see. What could I possibly recite to you that will?
Dancing Fool.
Oh, that's a safe one. Yeah. I don't know much about dancing. That's why I got this song. One of my legs is shorter than the other, and both of my feet's too long. Of course, now, right along with them, I got no natural rhythm, but I go dancing every night, hoping everything will be all right, 'cause I'm a dancing fool, etc.
Now that sounds fairly harmless, and yet some of your stuff could not be done even if the microphones weren't on and the cameras weren't.
Well, you have to understand the reason why. It's not my fault, because the problem with lyrics stems from a primitive belief in this country that there are certain words in our language that will corrupt you instantaneously the moment they are uttered into the atmosphere.
Something awful will happen.
Yeah, I mean, come on, let's be reasonable about this. I mean, that's like animism,
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so stupid that an idea like that persists in an industrial society, And because of these attitudes, and because people have spent money to build agencies to make sure that there's this whole hierarchy of people waiting for these magic words to occur in the airwaves. And they're just, they're hovering. You can't see them, but they're all around here. They've got snipers up in all these things up here that shoot a mask over your mouth if you don't say anything. They have them in radio stations. They have them in all television stations. They have them everywhere. And even at news...
Are you ready? He's about to say something awful.
No, I don't need to say it, because the fact of the matter is that everybody already knows what I'm talking about. So if they know what I'm talking about, why can't I say it?
That's right. Because now you've induced them in their mind and made them think.
Yeah, I'm making you think dirty.
quite a feat, actually.
Making him think at all is a really rough one, but you start him off by thinking dirty, and then and they get that sensation.
Well, I hope you're proud of yourself. You should have your mind washed out with a bar of soap. Frank, in the time remaining, one thing that's always surprising in reading about you is your, for want of a better phrase, anti-drug stand, or the fact that you people think any rock musician is a pharmacopoeia of drugs and their remnants. Mm-hmm. And you're not. Is any of that put on?
No, I don't use drugs. I don't like drugs. I don't like what drugs do to people. I don't like to hang out with people who are drunk and who throw up on me. And I don't like to hang out with people who are full of drugs who can fall on me. You know? And if people ask me about this all the time, and I say drugs are bad for you, but I'm not your dad. You know, you want to use drugs, go ahead. Just stay away from me. I don't like the way it smells when they smoke it, and I don't like to see people with needles. And the idea of people sticking things up their nose in order to be groovy is really repulsive. You know, it's just not my idea of a good time. And that's another reason why I can't get any songs on the radio.
Have you had any personal have you lost good friends to...
Well, I haven't seen anybody die, but I've seen people go vegetable. I've seen people who, after considerable usage of chemicals that were originally designed to be used as warfare agents, mm-hmm. and we all know what they are, wind up in a state where they had a lot of trouble with their shoes. You know, let alone speaking the language. I mean, people who used to be okay, but wound up being in bad shape.
This didn't come from, this has been something you've always felt. It's not from seeing it around you to the point where, or trying it and having a bad experience yourself.
Well, let's put it this way. I have, in my lifetime, smoked 10 marijuana cigarettes, and invariably got a sore throat, and it made me sleepy. And I could never understand why people would keep smoking this stuff and say how high they were getting, you know, because it just seemed like it was a waste of time. I thought somebody was pulling my leg. Have you heard that one? You know, like...
I don't know, can you say that on television? Yeah, I think so. Frank, it's been a pleasure talking to you. The time has shot past us, and nice having you here. Frank Zappa. See you next time.